everyone, I'm Maki. Today, I'm going to introduce one of the most popular mobile suits in the entire Gundam series. Here it is. It's the Freedom Gundam. This Gundam, favored by its designer Kunio Okawara, has spawned many plastic models and figures. Director Mitsuo Fukuda seems to like it too. In the TV Annie Cross Age, which he joined the staff and was predominantly produced by Sunrise, you can see the Freedom Gundam's armaments displayed in a weapon shop. The pilot is Kira Yamato, the protagonist of the Seed series. He is entrusted with the Freedom Gundam by Lao's crime and sets out to end the war. According to the settings added in the Master Grade plastic model, had Kira Yamato not commandeered it, the pilot would have likely been either Izek or someone from ZAFT Special Forces. Izek was a rival to Rank 4 top honors at the military academy. His mother is a key figure, second in command to Patrick Zar, the chairman of the Supreme Council indeed. A Freedom Gundam piloted by Izek would be a formidable force. So, let's thoroughly analyze the allure of the Freedom Gundam today. First, let's analyze the birth of the Freedom Gundam in the real world. The Freedom Gundam was initially called Number 10. This was because it was the 10th Gundam model in the Gundam Seed series. The influence of this can be seen in its model number 10. Number 10 Gundam was designed by Kunio Okawara, who also worked on the original Gundam. The director, Mitsuo Fukuda, requested a design that combined the functions of the three different equipments of the Stray Gundam into one. However, Okawara initially opposed this idea, feeling it could lead to an unattractive design. Through repeated modifications, the current design of the Freedom Gundam was finalized. While elements like the Sword Strike's large sword and the cannon supported by the Launcher Strike's arm were eliminated, their combat capabilities were surpassed in the design. This provisional design later evolved into machines like the Gundam Perfect Strike Freedom and Gundam Perfect Strike Freedom Rules, featured in the Gundam Breaker and Build series. Also, the concept of combining the three strikers' armaments was revisited and evolved into the Destiny Gundam in the sequel. The completed Number 10 Gundam was initially named Fire Gundam by Fukuda. However, after the staff suggested that a more heroic name would be fitting, a new name was considered. Fukuda then focused on the original Gundam's planning stage name and discovered Freedom Fighter Gunboy. From this, the name Freedom Gundam was born. The irony of naming a war weapon meant to take lives freedom reflected the absurdity of war, making it a fitting choice. Initially, there was some resistance among the staff to the name, as the word "dumb" appeared twice, affecting the rhythm in an interview. Fukuda mentioned everyone except me was against the name Freedom Gundam. However, he chose the name believing that if the show's mission was to attract new fans, it should have a name opposed by traditional fans. Thus, the Freedom Gundam was born and gained popularity and support from many fans. Okawara himself has spoken of the Freedom Gundam as one of his representative works among the designs he has handled. The original Gundam's creator, Yoshiyuki Tomino, mentioned that the toy company requested him to incorporate the transformation and combination mechanism, which he reluctantly included. However, these features attracted many fans. Both have the element that they were born by incorporating opposing opinions. The Freedom Gundam shares a commonality with the original Gundam. It's a design born from multiple professionals, crushing their opinions and pride, refining each other's work over time. The Freedom Gundam is the successor of the Strike Gundam, as the protagonist's mobile suit and simultaneously a successor machine that inherits the tradition of the original Gundam in the series' history. So, how did the Freedom Gundam come into existence within the story? In the war between the Earth Alliance and the ZAFT forces, mobile suits were of utmost importance. ZAFT's use of the Zing was bringing about a tremendous disadvantage to the Earth Alliance, which vastly outnumbered them in manpower and resources. Recognizing the effectiveness of mobile suits, ZAFT developed many new models. However, the advent of the ZAFT-X series developed by the Earth Alliance shocked ZAFT's leaders. The fact that mobile suits, developed and piloted by naturals were far surpassing ZAFT's own, filled them with fear. Viewers of the TV anime know that the pilot of the Strike Gundam is the coordinator Kira Yamato. However, Patrick Zara, who wanted to intensify the hardline stance against naturals, and Raul Creed, who desired the intensification of the war, concealed this fact. Do you remember Creed gently speaking to Afran Zara, who was conflicted about fighting his friend Kira? Knowing that the pilot of Strike was a coordinator, Creed suggested keeping Afran away from combat. Creed's concern wasn't just for Afran, it was more convenient for him if the belief that the Strike's pilot was a natural took hold. Naturals have developed a terrifyingly capable mobile suit. This spurred the start of new mobile suit development by ZAFT. However, while the ZAFT-X series phase shift armor and beam weapon technology were revolutionary, they also had the drawback of consuming a vast amount of energy. Anticipating mass production of mobile suits based on the ZAFT-X series, ZAFT leaders realized they needed to develop more powerful mobile suits, otherwise they would be defeated by the Earth Alliance's numerical superiority. They then considered using nuclear engines, which had become unusable due to neutron jammers. However, for coordinators and especially for Patrick Zara, the Plan Supreme Council chairman, nuclear power was a source of sorrow and hatred, symbolized by the tragedy of Bloody Valentine. It was a part of their proud history that they had sealed away nuclear power threat with neutron jammers. Zara, who had lost his beloved wife in Bloody Valentine, decided to use nuclear power again, driven by his hatred for naturals. The technology of neutron jammer killer was completed even before the ZAFT-X series was hijacked by ZAFT. It was led by Plant Council member Yuri Amalfi. However, Amalfi, a moderate who had been passive about the war, always opposed the military use of this technology. Tragedy struck Amalfi when his son Nicole was killed by a mobile suit of the Earth Alliance. This event shifted his stance, becoming more proactive in the war. Thus, the military use of the neutron jammer killer was officially decided. Amalfi provided the technology, justifying it as a means to end the war quickly and prevent further loss of lives. However, he also expressed his gratitude to Afran Zara for defeating the enemy who killed Nicole, and later voiced his disappointment in a harsh tone towards Lois Klein for betraying Plant. A flame of hatred had ignited within him too. With ZAFT's pride and technology, the Freedom Gundam and Justice Gundam were completed. As a base for the models, the already developed gates was used. A careful observation reveals similarities in their shoulder and chest designs. Their names were given by Patrick Zara. They were imbued with the desire to bring down the hammer of justice on naturals and achieve true freedom for coordinators. The Freedom Gundam has a very distinctive structural design. its sibling machine, the Justice Gundam largely inherits the features of the GATX series, particularly the detachable lifter on its back is an advanced development of the Stry Gundam's equipment. On the other hand, the wings equipped on the Freedom Gundam's back do not have a detachment mechanism and share a similar structure to the wings used on the DIN. Although there are no documents stating that the data of the DIN's wings were applied to the Freedom Gundam's wings, the Heinlein Design Bureau, which was responsible for the DIN's design, is one of the organizations that make up the Integrated Design Bureau that developed the Freedom Gundam. Therefore, it is highly likely that the DIN's technology was used. While inheriting technology pilfered from the Earth Alliance forces, the Freedom Gundam is a machine imbued with new technology and the pride of the ZAFT forces. Its distinctive wings are named active elastic wings. There are 5 wings on each side, which operate with a wide range of motion controlled by a computer. These wings, combined with small thrusters and center of gravity control, provide the Freedom Gundam with exceptional maneuverability. This complex mechanism seems to be the pride and soul of the coordinator engineers of the ZAFT forces. The wings also incorporate storage mechanisms for the large beam cannons known as barrier and their heat dissipation systems. The propulsion system on the back also boasts remarkable performance, while the thrust values for most mobile suits in the SEED series are unknown. The thrust of the Freedom Gundam's back thrusters is set at 527,000 kilograms. For comparison, the She Gundam, known as an extremely powerful mobile suit in the Universal Century series, has a thrust of 160,000 kilograms. The Freedom Gundam has more than 3 times this thrust. The Bully 2 Gundam, known as the strongest Gundam in the Universal Century, is equipped with a special device called the Minovsky drive, making its total thrust unknown. The thrust from its conventional propellers is 66,790 kilograms. Compared to either Gundam, the Freedom Gundam has an astonishingly high thrust. This thrust allows the Freedom Gundam to fly under Earth's gravity using only its back thrusters. The thrusters equipped on the wings and legs can all be used for posture control and other purposes. Additionally, the output of the machine is set at 8,826 kilowatts, surpassing the Bully 2 Gundam, which uses the Minovsky drive and has an output of 7,510 kilowatts. The original Gundam was characterized by its performance, greatly surpassing traditional mobile suits. In this regard, the Freedom Gundam continues the tradition of the original Gundam, significantly exceeding the catalog performance of previous Gundams. Another major feature of the Freedom Gundam is the multi-lock-on system. This system can target more than 10 enemy units simultaneously. However, the complex system and the technical skills required to appropriately use the equipped weapons make it a system that only a very limited number of coordinators can handle. The pilot of the Freedom Gundam is required to manage their own unit's control, predict enemy attack trajectories, and make complex decisions about weapon usage. The multi-lock-on system symbolizes the Freedom Gundam's role in protecting Plant, the homeland of the coordinators. In the story, the pilot Kira Yamato, who was not a ZAFT soldier, combined this system with the additional meteor armament to destroy a multitude of nuclear missiles. However, it is a fact that the Freedom Gundam saved many lives with the multi-lock-on system. Also notable is the head shape of the Freedom Gundam, which closely resembles that of the GATX series. The similarity in design has no symbolic meaning. It is simply that placing high-function sensors efficiently results in this shape. However, this head sensor layout is very costly, so it was not adopted in many units. Lastly, regarding the software initials spelling Gundam in the novel version, Kira Yamato speculates that an engineer responsible for software development must have said it playfully. In the Seed series, the name Gundam is not an official weapon name, but more of a nickname used by some people. In the CTV anime, only Kira Yamato, who coined the name, along with his acquaintances like Rose Crying and Kakali Arthur, use it. In the Astray spin-off series and the Destiny sequel, characters like Logeo and Sting Aokui also use the term Gundam, indicating some degree of recognition for the name. Let's review the armaments of the Freedom Gundam. First is the MMIGAU, 2 Pierce 76mm close-in defense machine gun. Pierce is a Latin word meaning woodpecker, signifying the desire for a weapon capable of rapid fire like a woodpecker. A common armament for Gundam types is the head-mounted Vulcan gun. Interestingly, these weapon specifications have varied over time. Some documents even describe the Pierce mounted in parts that resemble gun barrels on the torso. In the master-grade plastic model released in 2016, these parts are explained as multi-sensors. The head Vulcan gun is often used for intercepting missiles, restraining enemy movements, and targeting weak points like cameras and joints. Kira uses them uniquely to slow down heavy, hammer-like mass weapons. The Raider Gundam's Moir, even when defended with a shield, can significantly disrupt the Freedom Gundam's balance. However, by slowing it down with the Vulcan gun, Kira manages to deflect it using the shield. It's a fighting style that leverages the physical destructive power of metal bullets. Next is the MAM-20 Lupus Beam Rifle. Lupus is Latin for wolf, a name also used for the Gundam Barbatos Lupus. It's a compact weapon with excellent rapid-fire capability, surpassing the beam rifle of the ZAFT series in power. The large beam cannon equipped on the thing had less destructive power than the ZAFT series beam rifle and could only fire 3 times per energy cartridge. The Lupus beam rifle, powered by a nuclear engine, boasts an incredible number of shots. Equipping this beam rifle alone qualifies it as a heavy firepower mobile suit. Interestingly, the Lupus beam rifle was the first beam rifle to be practically used by the ZAFT forces. However, it was so energy-intensive that operating it with a standard battery engine in a gate reduced its combat time to less than 10 minutes. Thus, performance reduction or non-adoption was considered until the possibility of nuclear engine installation allowed for its full potential to be harnessed. Then there's the MAM-1 Lacerda Beam Saber. Lacerda means lizard in Latin. The Data stolen from the Earth Alliance's ZAFT series led to the completion of the logo and Vacuous Beam Sabers. This event was nothing short of humiliating for ZAFT's engineers. The weapon symbolizes the challenge to technology brought by Natos, whom they deemed inferior, powered by the vast energy from a nuclear engine. It surpasses the ZAFT series beam sabers in both output and blade length. It can be used in the ambidextrous halberd form by connecting 2 beam sabers. This mode takes advantage of the mobile suit's unique feature 360-degree wrist rotation in attacks. Kira Yamato used this tactic to destroy the right arm and beam rifle of the Providence Gundam. A subtle feature, is that the lacquer the beam saber's hilt is made of phase shift armor. In the activation scene of the Freedom Gundam, the hilt undergoes the characteristic color change of phase shift armor. Moreover, there are scenes where the Freedom Gundam deflects enemy beam weapons with its beam saber. The exact mechanism of this action is unclear. In the Seed series, beams do not physically interfere with each other, a setting not seen in other Gundam series, where beam sabers clash. Scenes often show beams being blocked by beam-coded shields. Considering this, defending against beam weapons with a beam saber might seem odd. However, the ZAFT series beam sabers use mirage-colored particles for braid formation, likely also used in the hastily built Freedom Gundam. Mirage-colored particles can bend beams, a feature used in the Forbidden Gundam's defensive armament. Therefore, it's highly plausible that the beam saber can defend against beam weapon projectiles. But this is an advanced technology. Beams in the Seed War travel near the speed of light, making it impossible to avoid them once fired. Characters like Guy Nurakumo and Kate Madigan in the Sea Destroy series mention that skilled soldiers observe enemy gun muzzles, dodging beam attacks the moment they are fired. Avoiding beam weapons is an extremely advanced tactic, and defending against them with a beam saber is even more so. This is one of the reasons Kira Yamato is often described as the strongest pilot in the Seed world. Next, let's look at the MMIM-15 Zephyrs railgun. Zephyrs is a Latin word meaning swordfish. It is a weapon developed from the shiver mounted on the Duo Gundam's additional equipment, the Assault Shroud. It is a full electromagnetic railgun. Its extended barrel length allows it to fire bullets at extremely high speeds. Some sources even state that the Zephyr's firepower alone is comparable to the launcher strike. The caliber is unknown, but many documents mention that it has a vast number of rounds. For comparison, let's analyze the weapons of the Forbidden Gundam. Its arm-mounted machine guns have a caliber of 115 mm, and the railgun's caliber is 88 mm. Given ZAFT's significant technological advantage over the Earth Alliance, it's possible they achieved even smaller calibers. Technically, the railgun is a nodal weapon. It was once anticipated as the next main armament for mobile suits, when small-scale beam weapons were difficult to practically. However, the advent of new technology with the ZAFT series diminished the railgun's superiority. The ZAFT series featured both new technology weapons, such as beam rifles and beam sabers, and traditional armaments like head Vulcans and the Buster Gundam's missiles. Long-used weapons have high reliability and mature technology, making maintenance and resupply advantageous. That's why the ZAFT series included auto weapons. But is the Zephyr's railgun on the Freedom Gundam employed for similar reasons? Actually, it's a bit different. The introduction of beam weapon technology to the ZAFT forces led to the view that metal bullet weapons were no longer necessary. Facing dismay as military industries developing the railgun strongly advocated its utility to the military. Its advantages included high defense against laminated armor, which was resistant to beam weapons, and the ability to rapidly attack multiple targets, leveraging its rapid-fire capability. Of course, the company's significant research and development investment also played a role. For ZAFT, nurturing and sustaining leading development institutions was also a crucial issue. Thus, the Zephyr's railgun was officially adopted on the Freedom Gundam. In actual combat, weapons using physical bullets like railguns proved effective. The Blue Frame II, a modified version of the Gundam Stray Blue Frame, is equipped with the tactical arms, which features a Gatling gun. This weapon fires both metal bullets and beams, countering phase shift armor. Coincidentally, the adoption of the Zephyrs railgun by Neos Military Industries provided the Freedom Gundam with an equipment concept similar to that of Gai Muwakumo, feared as the strongest mercenary in the cosmic era. Also, beam weapons significantly lose destructive power underwater, a weakness. Though primarily designed for space combat, exclusively equipping beam weapons would leave the Freedom Gundam vulnerable to underwater enemies. The Zephyrs railgun's adoption enhanced its versatility. In Sea Destiny, it's used to attack the underwater Abyss Gundam, damaging its valuable phase shift armor-propelled unit. It's a testament to the Zephyr's fearsome destructive power. Additionally, there's a grip on the side of the gun barrel for hand-holding. The Freedom Gundam often fires the Zephyrs without using the grip, but in the close-range shot against the Forbidden Gundam, the grip is utilized, possibly intended for high-impact scenarios. Of course, being a prototype, the Freedom Gundam's weapon specifications might not have been finalized. Another powerful weapon on the Freedom Gundam is the M100 Valier Plasma Conversions Beam Cannon. It has extremely high destructive power, comparable to the Launcher Strike Sagi, while being smaller. It's capable of long-range sniping and surpasses the Calamity Gundam's main armament, Shrag. Initially deemed impractical for field deployment due to enormous energy consumption, the Valier was tested on the gates, which shut down after just 2 shots. However, the adoption of a nuclear engine allowed its mounting on the Freedom Gundam. The Neutron Jammer Killer, officially provided by Yuri Amalfi, was the first weapon decided for installation. However, the Valier's large barrel size compared to the overall machine posed a potential balance issue. Some opposed its mounting on the Freedom. Rumors suggest this was partly due to poor relations between the mobile suit and weapons development departments. Yuri Amalfi, a mechanical engineering authority, proposed the idea of integrating the Valier's barrel holding and heat dissipation mechanisms into the attitude control wings, resolving the issue. His mediation between the conflicting departments contributed to the birth of a new machine. Whether this stemmed from his desire for peace and harmony or hatred for Natos, who took his son's life, remains unclear. The Freedom Gundam is also equipped with the large additional armament known as Meteor. A separate program dedicated to Meteor is in the works. Please look forward to it. The Freedom Gundam is also equipped with another distinctive mechanism, the multi-lock-on system and mode switching. The multi-lock-on system, as the name suggests, is a system that can simultaneously target and lock onto multiple enemies. When this feature is activated, a dedicated monitor appears inside the cockpit to assist the pilot. Combined with the full burst mode, which I will explain later, the Freedom Gundam exhibits the capability to annihilate numerous enemy units single-handedly. Next is the mode switching. The Freedom Gundam transforms into high-mat mode by spreading its wings wide. This is an abbreviation for High Maneuver Aerial Tactical Mode. By individually controlling the 10 wings mounted on the back, it exhibits incredible maneuverability and turning ability. This transformation, along with the simultaneous use of all armaments, is referred to as high-mat full burst. The wings also serve as a heat dissipation mechanism, releasing the immense heat generated by the full burst. Furthermore, the wings play a role in recoil control and sniping posture. Surprisingly, it's unclear how Kira executes this attack. Some sources explain that the HIMARK full burst firing is automatically executed. However, in Kira's attacks, he targets the enemy's weapons and extremities, suggesting he might be manually sniping or using a custom-made software. After receiving the Freedom Gundam from La's Crime, Kira traveled from front to Earth alone in it. The exact travel time is unknown, but given Kira's record of modifying the Stray Gundam's software during battle, it wouldn't be surprising if he had created custom software. A similar fighting style is seen in the Gundam 00's Gundam Zebanier. The multi-lock-on is executed by the support robot hull, while the pilot lock-on Stratos manually selects the shooting weapons, adjusts firing lines, and even the order of attacking enemies. It wouldn't be surprising if Kira was performing all these actions manually. In the real-world planning stage of the Freedom Gundam, a different combat method was considered. It involved switching between the high-speed flying HIMARK mode and the full burst mode, which uses all shooting armaments simultaneously. This was intended to impart the versatility of the Stray Gundam, which changes combat style based on its armaments without needing to switch striker packs. However, in the actual TV anime broadcast, both modes were integrated into the HIMARK full burst tactic. The reasoning behind this change remains unclear, but it seems to have caused confusion during production. At the time of the anime's airing, the plastic models released couldn't reproduce the HIMARK full burst mode. This posed a significant issue for Bandai, which was responsible for the model kits. For instance, the Freedom Gundam's head is inscribed with D, the Italian word for 10. While not part of the official setting, this inscription was initially drawn by an animator on a whim, and not an official detail. Manga artist Mizuho Takayama, handling the comic version, adopted this inscription after watching the TV broadcast. However, at that time, since the inscription was unofficial, Takayama had to revise all the manuscripts. For Bandai, the gimmicks of the model kits are of utmost importance. The introduction of HIMARK Full Burst was a significant real-world event. Nevertheless, HIMARK Full Burst gained immense popularity among fans and became one of the elements pushing the commercial success of the Freedom Gundam. Gundam Seed also had the mission of combining popular elements from past Gundam series. HIMARK Full Burst inherits the legacy of powerful protagonist moves, like the Wing Gundam Zero's Twin Buster Rifle or the Burning Gundam's God Finger. What were the remarkable feats of the Freedom Gundam? In my program, I have analyzed Kira Yamato's combat techniques. The Freedom Gundam is known for its flashy combat performance, but the battles showcasing Kira's delicate skills are also fascinating. Let's focus on some combat scenes not previously discussed. A scene that left a strong impression on many fans is when the Freedom Gundam appeared to save the Archangel. The Zin was approaching the Archangel's command center, its gun barrel aimed. In front of the crew, resigned to their fate, the Zin's gun is destroyed. Then, the Freedom Gundam makes its appearance. This scene has led to a slight division in opinions among fans. There are those who say Kira sniped the Zin's gun, and others who believe Kira sniped the bullet. Indeed, the gun barrel pointed at the Archangel was emitting light from inside, indicating that the trigger had already been pulled. What do you think? I believe in combining both opinions. Kira sniped the gun barrel. The fact that Hiro didn't target the Zin's arm or head suggests he knew it was too late to prevent the firing. However, targeting bullets moving inside the gun barrel seems unrealistic. Of course, the idea of shooting the bullets is heroically and mukakuri cool, which I also find appealing. The battle with the Providence Gundam was also memorable. I have explained in a separate program how Kira used the mechanical structure of the arms in this fight. In this battle, the Freedom Gundam lost one of its arms and legs, resulting in a highly unbalanced state. Losing such crucial parts was a serious predicament for the Freedom Gundam. Therefore, Kira repeated the same attack twice against the Providence Gundam. The first attempt was evaded, but he succeeded in destroying the Providence with the second charge. Repeating the same tactic against a highly skilled pilot like Raul Creed is not usually effective. Yet, Kira's choice of this approach indicates how much he and the Freedom Gundam were pushed to their limits. Of course, the first attack was not merely evaded. Kira's piloting skill inflicted damage on the Providence Gundam. The battle with the Impulse Gundam in Sea Destiny is also noteworthy. I have detailed the Force Impulse Gundam in another program. In this battle, the Freedom Gundam's torso was destroyed by the Excalibur. The nuclear engine-equipped Freedom Gundam could have caused a massive nuclear explosion upon its destruction. However, Kira had initiated the reactor shutdown just before being destroyed. Consequently, the Freedom Gundam did not trigger a nuclear explosion. The large explosion seen at the time was from the detached engine block of the Archangel. Coincidentally, this explosion may have prevented the remnants of the Freedom Gundam from being recovered by the ZAFT forces. Also, ZAFT's mobile suits can detach various parts of their bodies. This mechanism prevents the explosion of a damaged part from causing a chain reaction in other parts. Once removed from the engine, the neutron jammer killer no longer powers a nuclear engine. Interestingly, the prototype of the Freedom and Justice, the Dreadnought Gundam, had a broader range of effect for its neutron jammer killer. This was seen as a flaw, as it could potentially allow others to use nuclear weapons. The Freedom Gundam was an improvement over this, with a narrower range for its neutron jammer killer, increasing the likelihood that the nuclear engine would be outside the killer's range in case of critical damage. Such details might also be reflected in this scene. The Freedom Gundam is a mobile suit that represents Gundam Seed and has gained immense popularity across the Gundam series. In the Cosmic Era world, it has become something of a legend. Its significant role has led soldiers to view it as a sort of myth commonly heard on the battlefield. After the end of the conflicts in Gundam Seed, the Freedom Gundam was secretly transported to Orb. According to the Norionan of Sea Destiny, this was a decision made by Eileen Canair, who became chairwoman of France's Supreme Council after the war, recognizing its contributions to the peace process and ensuring it wouldn't face military or international legal repercussions. The repaired Freedom Gundam was restored in Orb and completed in an underground shelter. As narrated in the novel version, Kira was unaware that the Freedom Gundam had been repaired. It was from conversations between Lars and Backfield that he deduced the Gundam was hidden underground. This reminds me of an episode featuring Amuro Ray from Zeta Gundam. After the original Gundam's battles, Amuro, having achieved significant military success, received exceedingly courteous special treatment from the Earth Federation forces. However, this was effectively house arrest. One of the characters, Cat's Kobayashi, felt dismay at Amaro's seclusion away from the battlefront. Cats urged Amaro to show resolve, saying, "You should at least have a Gundam hidden underground." At that time, Amaro did not have a Gundam hidden underground. However, Kiro did. Of course, it was Lars and Battlefield who orchestrated hiding the Freedom Underground. Though the Freedom Gundam was kept out of sight, Orb obtained a lot of data during its repair and maintenance. As a result, a new model of mobile suit known as the Eclipse Gundam was born. In the opening visuals, the Freedom Gundam strikingly poses with the sun in the background. The Eclipse Gundam was born as a unit deeply associated with the sun. Now I have an urgent message for you. Beneath the city you live in, a Cyclops system is set up. Don't worry, though. I've hidden the Freedom Gundam under your house. Activate the Freedom Gundam using the subscribe button. Intercept the approaching ZAFT forces, oblivious to what's underground. Execute an attack with the Heimat full burst by pressing the like button. And don't forget to hit the bell button to signal a retreat. Let's save many lives by combining your will with the power of the Freedom Gundam. See you again in the next episode.